As you can see, it is summertime here in the Great White North, and even though this country's collectively called the Great White North, it is still fairly hot in here. It's still very hot in anywhere up here. And, let's even take a look. Oh! It's actually only 26 degrees. Sorry for the terribly blinding camera here. I have the light on because this place doesn't exactly get a lot of light in the later hours. As you can see, 26.7. That's actually probably one of the coldest temperatures it's been. If we take a look at the... knock things all over the floor first, but if we take a look at the memory, that's from the wintertime, 16. And it's been almost up to 31 in here this summer. So, yeah. It's also very humid, which is obviously not a great thing to be having when you've got a lot of computers in here. So a dehumidifier would be a nice thing to have, but we don't have that. But in order to keep the air circulated and maybe to add coolness, it always helps to have lots of fans going and also to have drinks whenever necessary. You can see I've got my big Sunbeam box fan down there. The other thing that helps is actually central air. As you can see, we've got that, but it doesn't really do a very good job up here. So the fans, this fan is right here and moves all the cold air out from underneath this table, of which there is quite a bit. It just sort of sits there. It doesn't really do anything. So I've got this fan here moving all of it out. I've also got this fan, which is sitting over top of all that stuff, beaming down onto this computer so it doesn't overheat. And I also have a fan back there beaming onto all these drives so they don't overheat. And I don't think I would ever do it any different way. But that leaves one problem. There isn't any real air circulation out around in the rest of the room, because while I like these little fans, they don't really do a whole heck of a lot. They certainly don't move air beyond about here. Well, I can still feel it there, but I can't feel it right about here. Well, I can feel it, but it's negligible right about here, which is about a span of, that's not even a meter, probably about 2 feet. After about 2 feet, those are completely useless. And in fact, I'd imagine that plastic-bladed one back there is a lot less efficient at moving air than this one is, because this is an entirely metal fan. And this, while it moves a lot of air, is purely directional, because, well, it's a box fan, it doesn't rotate and do any of that. If you remember, I bought this box fan to replace a Homestyles, it was a black, that was broken. As it turns out, it was just that one wire that didn't work, because check this out, folks. Here it is. And what I did to fix it, which is admittedly not the way that you should fix anything that carries mains voltage, is I put some caps in here, and it's holding out quite well. You probably won't be able to see it. Oh, there we go. Now you can see it, right there. There's one of them. The other one is down there somewhere. And again, yeah, you can make it out. It's right there. Getting resourceful. Normally, what I would like to do is I would like to use heat shrink tubing and solder and do it the right way, but gotta work with what I have. Didn't feel like buying equipment, especially considering this is only going to be used as a... Actually, no, it's not. I'll tell you what this one's going to do. This thing is going to actually be going over next door and replace that thing. This right here, this hunk of plastic that right now, presently, is performing its rendition of the Leaning Tower of Pisa. You can see how cracked this motor is. Anyway, it does work. And that one is going to be coming in here because I don't really care about noise. Wow, that thing is making a lot of bearing noise. Not sure if you can hear it with this. And if you're wondering why I'm using this particular camera, it's because, first of all, it's got a video light on it, and light is not very plentiful here at about almost 8 o'clock in the evening, and it's not quite... It's one of those times where it's not quite dark enough to turn your lights on, but it's not quite bright enough to make a decent quality video. So that's why I'm using the iPod. But the other reason is because this one readily presented itself, and I'm also trying to limit the amount of usage that my JVC over there gets, because I'm trying to prolong its lifespan. And I don't want to burn that camera out, because then I'm screwed, because I don't have the money to be buying a new camera right now. But anyway, this thing actually does run now. You'll see a lot of the fix later on. It also doesn't burn. Later in this, in fact, this next clip I filmed yesterday. But thanks to the magic of video editing, you will see it right now. Alright, let's see what I did. Yes, it's still here. I was originally going to throw it away, but I decided to fix it in the most dangerous way possible. As you can see there, this is not the right way to do this, guys. Because those actually, I think, are power-carrying wires. Yes, they would be, which is why they're so thick. That 16-gauge wire right there. Well, then again, I guess that's not that thick. It's not that bad, really. Considering it should be bigger, but it does work. Watch this. Turn off the safety here. It runs. And yes, the cover will go on with all this here. But that being said, I'm not bringing it in until I've got that set up the right way. So I've got those secured at the very least. I'm probably going to put some hot glue in there so they can't come off. Yeah, I'll probably just put hot glue in there and deal with it that way, because I don't really feel like taking all that out and going to the trouble of getting a heat shrink tubing, because I'm lazy. And it's only going to be used for a spare anyway, but there you go. Probably still needs a new cap, as you can see there. That's a really cheap cap. It's a PG for microfarad. Plus or minus 5%. I'm not sure if you can get those motor capacitors. I'm not sure I really even want to, but it works. And you can put the cover back on without those caps falling off and causing the wires to short out against the frame. So I guess there's one thing, right? I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to let it sit here and run for a while, just to make sure that this is going to be completely stable. Let's put the lid back on and let's put it all the way back together and see how well it works then. Alright, it's ready to go. Maybe. There are lots of mosquitoes in here. Kick off the safety, start it up. No breakers have tripped yet, and no smoke is coming out the back. I just caused a cat to go flying over there. It's kind of funny. But this is working. So, there you go. I also cleaned out the motor housing with a can of air. So now there's no dust inside of it. Like I said, I'm going to let it run for a while. I'll watch it. Make sure it doesn't short anything. But it should be fine. I don't know why it wouldn't be. And once I secure those wires, it should also be fine. It's just the end. So there you go. I fixed it. And I'll be able to use it for something now. Maybe it'll go back into my bedroom. Maybe it'll replace the hunk of plastic that's performing its rendition of the Leaning Tower of Pisa that's in the other room. Or, I don't know. You can certainly use it for something. I'll probably just use it for my own purposes. But it works. So I guess there's one thing. Let's see if it comes back around. It might be time for a tune-up, I think. Alright, folks, as you can see, I brought it in. but I didn't do my heat shrink job that I was hoping to do. I'm not sure if you can see in there at all, or if you'll even be able to see the thing. But yes, there you go, you can see it right there. This stupid thing stuck. The caps are all still there. And I'm being called, so I might as well go down and figure out what all that's about. So I'm sure I just enthralled you all with that, but anyway, this thing actually doesn't draw nearly as much power as I thought. Let's see if we can get it to look at the data plate there. 0.37 amps. I thought it was something more like 4, which is why I was concerned about using those wire nuts, but I think it should be fine. I don't know why it would cause any problems. I still think that I should probably replace that really crappy looking Pine G. I get a kick out of saying that every single time. That capacitor that's in there, but I think I'm going to leave it alone until it really does fail. Probably breaks everything else in the process, but for a modern fan, this thing actually is pretty resilient. I'm not sure why it burned that wire out, but maybe it had something to do with unstable power, which this place has been known to have every now and again. This restoration, shall we call it, has not really completed. I still have to take the blades off. I still have to clean all the other parts, but I'll probably, you know what, to hell with it. I'll probably just use it in here. I'll put it over there in that corner and leave the Leaning Tower of Plastic in the other room alone to its own desires. I don't know why this plastic right here has been discoloring, but it has. Focus, damn it. That plastic has definitely been discoloring. That white ring is actually not a result of this camera. It is actually discolored. I need to clean off this plate here. I need to clean off these grills. Excuse me. I need to clean off the blades. And I need to clean off this base. But that should be no big deal. Other than that, I think we're pretty much done. Right now, what it's doing is it's running a cycle. I'm going to run this thing for 120 minutes, and if it doesn't burn up in that period of time, I think it will be pretty safe to say that it can run. I'll also run it overnight tonight and see if it survives that. But anyway, I think that's pretty much it for this particular video. You can see all the fingerprints on the side of this. That'll also be getting cleaned up. You can also see that it's not quite to the point like the other fan, where if you were to take away one level of hardness, it would become Vaseline, but it's still pretty flimsy feeling metal, or plastic. But this base is what really gives it its strength, and this is metal. There are a lot of metal pieces. That's metal. This is metal. On the other fan, I think this is plastic. No, it would still be metal, but it's a cheaper metal. And this is actually coated with plastic, but it is a solid piece of metal. This fan actually does have some heft to it, which is fairly nice. The other thing that I actually did, I don't know if I showed it, but the gun's downstairs now, but I hot glued, which again is probably not the right way to do it, but I hot glued the wires into those caps to make sure that they wouldn't come out when this thing is running, and potentially short out against the frame and trip a breaker or cause a fire, because neither of those things are exactly ideal. And like I said, I have a feeling that this thing still needs a capacitor, but I'm going to hold out on acquiring a new cap until this one blows up, which will probably take the rest of the fan out in the process, so it doesn't really matter. But anyway, I think that's pretty much it for this video. You don't really need to see the full restoration process, because you've seen it 100,000 times on other people's channels, and this is a modern fan, so it's not really worth going into detail to restore one of these. And in a way, I'm not restoring it, I'm just basically fixing the motor and cleaning it off. But anyway, now I'm starting to ramble on. Okay, let's take a closer look at this handiwork. I also wanted to go ahead and talk about this particular motor. This motor, well, this type of motor is actually what I believe is called a permanent split capacitor motor. Instead of being like a normal capacitor motor, where you've got a start winding and a run winding, and the capacitor is connected to the start winding, which allows the, the capacitor is connected to the start winding, and gives it enough power to start, and once the fan reaches speed, or the motor reaches speed, the capacitor gets switched out of the circuit via a centrifugal switch, and it runs solely on the run winding after that. This is a little bit different. And this is also not a reversible motor, so it's got a small start winding and a larger run winding. And it actually runs off of both windings for the entire duration of its cycle. I'm not quite sure what kind of benefit that would have. I'm not sure if it's because the run winding alone is not enough in a motor like this, if it's cheaper to do that, but either way, the start winding is connected in series with this, what is called a run capacitor, which is this big box right here. Now these capacitors can be anywhere from 1 to 100 microfarads in size. This one happens to be a 4 microfarad cap. So, there you have it. That's how they work. It's a very simple design, it's cheap, and it works, as you can tell, but it also has the problem of, in the event that this capacitor is ever taken out of circuit, like if it dies, or if a wire gets broken, such as in this case, the fan will no longer start, because it's no longer got a start winding to be able to kick it up. And the run winding doesn't carry enough current to start the fan. The start winding is able to give the oomph to start it up. And I also believe that the start winding needs to be kept in the circuit because the run winding is small and still won't have enough power to keep it going at full speed. The other thing is, it's there so that if you wanted to run it at a lower speed, you could switch it into that lower speed simply by switching it onto that other winding, which makes such a fan great for use in something like this. So there you go. And here's my work here. As you can see, I hot glued those wires in so the caps won't come off. I'm not going to touch that, and I'd highly advise that you do the same, because if you touch anything in here, especially this little piece right there, that little square part, you could probably get a pretty nasty shock off of it, and that would not make you feel too happy about working on fans anymore, now would it? This one I did the same too. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see it or not. Maybe if I focus on it. But if you can't see it, you just have to take my word for it. There is glue in there. And this does work. Again, I'm not going to touch anything. I'm going to use this. Hit the oscillator, so as you can see, that's how it works. Inside there, in case you ever wanted to see how an oscillator works. It does spin all the way around, but this little piece right there only spins in certain directions because of this little piece right here, this little metal part. The metal part doesn't spin all the way around because it's hooked up to a stationary piece at the back there, which hooks it up to the rest of the fan chassis. You can also see there's a nick taken out of that wire. I'm not sure when that happened. Clearly it happened at some point, and it's going to need to be dealt with. I don't know if I should replace that wire too, or if I should just see if I can get a new capacitor and just wire in a new capacitor. I might just buy a new capacitor anyway and wire it in, but this thing is actually working fairly well for being for having a bigger wire on it. It is the same gauge wire, it's 16 gauge. In fact, actually, I think the wire that they use is 18 gauge, so I think it's a little bit bigger. No, it's about the same size. But this thing moves a lot of air for being a cheap fan. It's only about 30 bucks. Still have to clean off the front, still have to do all of that, but that'll get done shortly, and you won't have to wait a bit to see that. Check out all of the dust that's in this. Yuck. See what happens if we try blowing it out. Wow. Created quite the dust cloud. Ah, it's got it in my face. Let's see if we can get the rest of the dust out of there. Okay, folks, I think it is going to make a spectacular recovery. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better than it was, and there you go. No more dust inside the blades. Nice clean faceplate. This is a scratch. This is actually the paint wearing off, and that's a scratch that is unfortunately permanently in there. But other than that, there's still some dust left over from the cloth. But other than that, it is perfect. You can also see some more scratching, or at least I can. But that's okay. The base is almost perfect. Again, save for a couple scratches here and there. This cleaned up nicely. And all that I need to do now is put the screw back in the back and let it finish its 2-hour cycle. Well, it's not perfect, but I never expected it to be perfect. It'll never be perfect, and it never was perfect. But it's made an astonishing recovery. Pretty good for a fan that was about to get trashed, and a modern fan at that. Although this thing is actually older than I thought, as you can see, maybe, from the plate. December of 2010 was its manufacturing date. It's in pretty damn good shape. Made in China still. But there you go. A modern pedestal fan, or upright fan, or whatever the hell you call it. That is, that went from being completely dead and dirty to being cleaner and functional, with a repair that probably, well, it might hold out, but I'm certainly not going to keep my hopes up, and I certainly would never do something like this if I were doing it properly. I'd get the right heat shrink tubing and solder and do it that way. But there you go. This thing is now going to go to its new home, which I've decided is going to be right there instead of in the other room. Thank you for watching. If you have any comments, feel free to leave them down below. And this is CP666, signing off. I hope to see you next time. Till then.